The private club was quiet, calm, and filled with soft music. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling, and the smell of expensive perfume floated through the air. This place was only for the rich and powerful. Every chair, every glass, every smile was carefully placed. Evan stood near the front desk, wearing a simple black uniform. His back was straight. His face was calm. To everyone else, he looked like just another staff member doing his job. He had worked here for months. Most people never noticed him. That afternoon, a black luxury car stopped outside the club. The door opened slowly. A woman stepped out wearing high heels, a designer dress, and dark sunglasses. Her name was Melissa Grant, the CEO's wife. When she walked in, the room changed. Staff members straightened up. Some guests whispered her name. She enjoyed the attention. Melissa always did. She walked straight to the front desk where Evan stood. "I'm late," she said loudly. "Why is my table not ready?" Evan checked the screen in front of him. His voice was polite and calm. "Ma'am, your table will be ready in 10 minutes. Another guest. 10 minutes? She snapped, cutting him off. "Do you know who I am?" Several people turned to look. "Yes, ma'am," Evan said softly. "But club policy." She laughed. Not a friendly laugh. A sharp one. "Policy," she said. "Listen carefully. My husband's company sponsors this club. You people work because of us." Evan did not react. His face stayed neutral. Melissa leaned closer. "Your staff. Don't talk to me about policy." The words stung, but Evan said nothing. She turned to the manager nearby. "Is this how you train your employees? They don't even know their place." The manager rushed over, sweating. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Grant. We'll prepare your table immediately." Melissa smiled, satisfied. As she walked away, she dropped her purse on the floor on purpose. "Pick that up," she said without looking back. The room went quiet. Evan paused for half a second. Then he bent down, picked up the purse, and handed it to her. "Here you go, ma'am," he said. She took it and smirked. "Good. At least you know how to follow orders." She walked off toward the lounge, her heels clicking loudly. People whispered again. Some felt uncomfortable. Others looked away. No one defended Evan. To them, this was normal. Evan returned to his place behind the desk. Inside, he felt nothing. No anger. No shame. Only patience. Later that evening, Melissa sat with her friends, laughing loudly. She treated the club like her personal home. She spoke down to staff. She ignored rules. She drank more than allowed. Evan watched from a distance. Another staff member whispered to him, "I don't know how you stay so calm. She's horrible." Evan gave a small smile. "Everyone shows their true self eventually," he said. The staff member didn't understand. Before leaving, Melissa walked past the desk again. She stopped and looked at Evan. "You," she said. "Make sure my car is ready next time I arrive. I don't like waiting." "Yes, ma'am," Evan replied. She rolled her eyes and left. The club returned to silence. Evan looked around slowly. At the walls, the lights, the people. This place was not just a job to him. It was personal. What no one knew, what Melissa never bothered to imagine, was that Evan's name was not on a staff list by accident. And what she did that day would soon cost her everything she valued. But for now, Evan waited. Because the best revenge always begins quietly. The next morning, the club opened as usual. Soft music played again. The floors were clean. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Evan arrived early. He always did. He changed into his black uniform and stood behind the desk, just like every other day. To anyone watching, he was only a quiet worker who followed rules and avoided trouble. But inside, Evan's mind was busy. Melissa's words from the day before still echoed in the air. Not because they hurt him, but because they showed who she really was. And people like her always made mistakes. Years ago, this club was nothing more than an empty building with broken windows. Back then, powerful people did not want it. Investors laughed at the idea. Evan did not. He had put his savings into it. He had designed the layout, chosen the rules, and helped shape the vision. But he never wanted attention. He trusted the wrong people to manage the public side. Over time, things changed. New names appeared. Big titles. CEOs. Sponsors. And slowly, Evan disappeared from the picture by choice. He stayed silent. He stayed invisible. Now he worked here to see the truth with his own eyes. Around noon, Melissa returned. This time she came with 2 guests. They laughed loudly as they walked in. Melissa waved her membership card like a trophy. "Best club in the city," she said. "Because of us." Evan watched quietly. She skipped the check-in process and walked straight in, breaking another rule. A junior staff member tried to stop her. "Ma'am, I just need to." "Move," Melissa said coldly, "before I get you fired." The young staff member froze. Evan stepped forward calmly. "Ma'am, please allow us to." Melissa turned sharply. "You again." She laughed. "Do you follow me everywhere?" Some guests nearby smiled awkwardly. "I'm warning you," she said. "You're just staff. Don't act important." Evan nodded. "I understand," he said. But this time he looked directly into her eyes. For a brief second, Melissa felt uncomfortable. She didn't know why. She turned away quickly and walked into the lounge. Behind the scenes, Evan opened a secure system on the desk computer. His access level was higher than any normal staff member. Only a few people in the building had that level. He checked Melissa's activity, late payments, rule violations, complaints from members, reports from staff. There were many. Evan closed the file slowly. That afternoon, the club manager called a meeting. "We've had complaints," the manager said nervously, "mostly about certain VIP members." Everyone knew who he meant. "But we can't upset them," the manager added quickly. "They bring money." Evan stayed quiet. After the meeting, another staff member approached Evan. "Why don't you say anything?" she asked. "You always know the rules best." Evan smiled slightly. "Because timing matters," he said. That evening, Melissa hosted a small gathering. She brought guests who were not members. They used restricted areas. They ignored staff requests. At one point, she spilled wine on a chair and laughed. "Just replace it," she said. "This place owes me." Evan watched everything. He wrote nothing down. He didn't need to. Later that night, Evan went to a locked office after everyone left. He used a keycard no one had ever seen him use before. Inside, the office was simple. No luxury. Just files, screens, and old photos on the wall. One photo showed the club before it existed. Another showed Evan standing beside the building, younger, hopeful. He sat down and opened a folder marked ownership records. His name was there. Clear. Legal. Undeniable. Evan leaned back and closed his eyes. He didn't want revenge out of anger. He wanted justice. And Melissa Grant was getting closer to a line she should never cross. She thought power came from a name. She was wrong. Power came from control. And Evan had been holding it quietly the whole time. Outside, the club lights turned off one by one. The calm before the storm had begun. The club was busier than usual that evening. A private business dinner was taking place, and many important members had arrived. The air felt heavy, filled with quiet talks and expensive drinks. Evan stood at the front desk, calm as always. He already knew Melissa would come. She arrived late again. This time she did not come alone. A group of people followed her, laughing loudly. Some were not members. Some looked uncomfortable, but no one dared to stop her. Melissa walked in like she owned the place. "I need the main hall," she said. "Now." The staff member at the desk hesitated. "Ma'am, the main hall is reserved tonight for." "For who?" Melissa asked sharply. She turned to Evan. "Don't tell me it's someone more important than me." Evan looked at the booking list. "It's reserved for a board-level dinner," he said calmly. Melissa laughed. "Cancel it." The room went silent. "I'm serious," she added. "My husband's name is on half the city's buildings. Do you want problems?" The manager rushed over again, clearly stressed. "Mrs. Grant, maybe we can find another space." "No," she snapped. "I want this hall." Evan closed the screen slowly. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "That won't be possible." Melissa stared at him. "Excuse me. This dinner was approved weeks ago," Evan continued. "These guests followed the rules." Her face turned red. "You think rules apply to me?" she shouted. "You're staff. You don't decide anything." People nearby began to watch. Melissa stepped closer to Evan. I could make one phone call, she whispered, and you'd be out of a job. Evan's voice stayed steady. That is your choice, he said. But the answer is still no. The manager looked terrified. Melissa laughed loudly, trying to save face. Fine, she said. I'll take what I want anyway. She waved her hand and walked toward the main hall with her group. That was the moment. Evan took a deep breath. Ma'am, he said loudly enough for others to hear. If you enter that hall, it will be a direct violation of club policy. She stopped and turned slowly. And what will you do? She asked, smiling. Throw me out. Evan met her eyes. I will record it, he said. She burst into laughter. Record it, she repeated mockingly. Listen to yourself. She turned and pushed the hall doors open. Inside, important guests stood up in surprise. The dinner stopped. Conversations ended. Melissa walked in proudly, holding a glass of wine. Sorry everyone, she said. Emergency VIP situation. The guests looked confused and annoyed. One man stood up. This dinner was approved by the board, he said. Who are you? Melissa smiled. I'm the CEO's wife. That did not impress him. Evan stood at the doorway. He watched silently. Then something worse happened. Melissa's friend climbed onto a restricted stage area. Let's take pictures, she said. Ma'am, please step down, a staff member said. Melissa waved her hand. Relax. This place belongs to us. A loud crack echoed. The stage panel broke. Gasps filled the room. The friend fell but was not hurt. The damage, however, was clear. The manager looked like he might faint. Evan stepped forward calmly. Please escort the guests out of the hall, he said to security. Melissa turned sharply. You don't give orders here. Yes, Evan replied quietly. I do. The security guards hesitated. Then slowly they followed Evan's instruction. Melissa was shocked. This is insane, she shouted. You're finished. Do you hear me? Evan did not answer. That night, multiple incident reports were filed. Broken property, rule violations, disruption of members, threats toward staff. Melissa had crossed more than one line. She had crossed the final one. Later, Evan sat alone in the office again. He reviewed the reports one by one. Each one was clear. Each one was signed. No emotion showed on his face. Only certainty. Melissa believed she had won that night. She believed power protected her. She was wrong. Because once rules are broken in front of witnesses, there is no way back. And Evan was done watching. The next morning, the club looked peaceful again. The broken stage had already been repaired. The guests from the night before were gone. To most people, it was just another day. But behind the calm, things had started to move. Evan arrived early as always. He walked through the halls slowly, greeting staff members with a nod. No one suspected anything. To them, he was still just the quiet man in a black uniform. Inside the main office, Evan logged into the system again. He opened the incident reports from the previous night. Every detail was there. Names, times, witnesses, photos, even security footage. He watched the video carefully. Melissa walking into the restricted hall. Her loud voice. Her friend climbing the stage. The crack as the panel broke. The shocked faces of the board guests. Nothing was missing. Evan saved everything in a secure folder. Then he opened another file, Member Conduct Review. Melissa's name appeared at the top. The club had clear rules. No matter how rich or powerful a member was, repeated violations led to review. That rule had existed since the club's first day. Evan had written it himself. He reviewed her history. Disrespect toward staff. Late payments hidden by assistants. Unauthorized guests. Damage to property. Threats. One or two mistakes could be ignored. This was a pattern. Evan leaned back in his chair. He was not angry. He was focused. He began making quiet phone calls. Not threats. Not warnings. Questions. He contacted the legal department connected to the club, then the finance office, then the board liaison. He never mentioned Melissa's name at first. He spoke only about a high-risk member situation. By the afternoon, meetings were scheduled. Small meetings. Private meetings. No drama. At the same time, Melissa was unaware of everything. She arrived at the club later that day, smiling as usual. She expected apologies. Instead, she felt something strange. Staff members were polite but distant. No one rushed. No one laughed at her jokes. "Where's my usual table?" she asked. "It's unavailable today," a staff member replied calmly. She frowned. "Unavailable? Since when?" "Since today," the staff member said without fear. Melissa felt irritated but ignored it. She believed her name still protected her. Meanwhile, Evan sat in a conference room with 3 people on a video call. None of them wore uniforms. One was a legal advisor. One was a senior board representative. One was an auditor. They listened carefully as Evan spoke. He did not raise his voice. He did not exaggerate. He simply presented facts. Screens shared. Videos played. Documents opened. No opinions. Only evidence. "This level of behavior creates legal risk," the legal advisor said. "And financial risk," the auditor added. The board representative sighed. "Is the ownership structure clear?" she asked. Evan nodded. "It is," he said. "And the rules apply equally." There was a short silence. Then the board representative spoke again. "Proceed with the standard process." That was all. No shouting. No excitement. Just approval. That evening, Evan printed a single document. Membership Status Review Final Notice. He placed it in a sealed envelope. Melissa spent the evening laughing with friends, unaware that her membership was already hanging by a thread. The next day, she received a call from her assistant. "They're asking questions," the assistant said nervously. "What questions?" Melissa asked. "About payments, behavior, incidents." Melissa laughed. "They're bluffing." She walked into the club later that day, confident as ever. Evan stood at the desk. She stopped in front of him. "You've been very quiet," she said. Feeling scared, Evan met her eyes calmly. "No," he said. "Busy." She smirked and walked away. That night, Evan returned to the locked office. He placed the envelope on the desk. Everything was ready. He looked at the photo on the wall again, the empty building from years ago. Then he turned off the light. The investigation was complete. The decision was final. All that remained was timing. And soon the truth would no longer stay hidden. The club prepared for its biggest night of the year. A charity gala. Important guests were invited. Business leaders. Investors. Media figures. The event would be talked about for weeks. Every detail had to be perfect. Melissa Grant was excited. She loved events like this. Cameras. Attention. Applause. She arrived early, dressed in a bright designer gown. Her smile was wide. She believed this night belonged to her. "I want the front table," she told the staff. "And make sure my name is announced." The staff nodded politely, but no one promised anything. Melissa didn't notice. Behind the scenes, Evan was busy. He checked the guest list carefully. Every board member was present. The legal advisor was there. The auditor too. Even the CEO, Melissa's husband, was scheduled to arrive later. Evan carried the sealed envelope with him. He did not rush. He had waited years for the right moment. As guests arrived, Melissa walked around, greeting people loudly. She laughed, touched arms, and told stories about her influence. "She practically runs this place," someone whispered. Evan heard it. He said nothing. Before the event started, Evan gathered the senior staff quietly. "Tonight, follow procedure exactly," he said. "No exceptions." The staff nodded. They trusted him more than they realized. The gala began smoothly. Music played. Glasses clinked. A speaker stepped onto the stage to thank sponsors. Melissa smiled proudly. Then she did something foolish. She walked onto the stage without permission and took the microphone. "I just want to say," she said loudly, "this club is successful because of people like my husband and me." The room went quiet. Some guests looked uncomfortable. From the side of the stage, Evan watched carefully. A staff member moved toward Melissa, but she waved them away. "Relax," she laughed. "Everyone loves me." Evan stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said calmly into the microphone, "please return to your seat." The room froze. Melissa turned shocked. Excuse me, she whispered angrily. This stage is reserved. Evan continued. Please step down. Whispers spread through the crowd. Melissa's face burned. Do you know who I am? She snapped into the mic. Evan looked at her. Yes, he said. That's why this matters. She laughed nervously and stepped off the stage, embarrassed but still confident. She returned to her seat, whispering angrily to friends. Minutes later, Evan walked back onto the stage. He held the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said calmly, thank you for your patience. The room became silent. This club was built on respect, fairness, and rules, he continued. No matter who you are. Melissa crossed her arms. Due to repeated violations, Evan said. One membership has been officially reviewed. The audience leaned in. Melissa felt a strange chill. Evan opened the envelope. Effective immediately, he read. The membership of Melissa Grant is revoked. Gasps filled the room. Melissa stood up. This is a joke, she shouted. You can't do this. Evan looked directly at her. It has already been done, he said. Her husband had just entered the room. He froze. Melissa turned to him. Fix this, she yelled. The CEO looked confused. What's going on? Evan placed the document on the screen behind him. Signed. Approved. Final. Security stepped forward quietly. Melissa's voice cracked. You're just staff. Evan lowered the microphone. For the last time, he said calmly. No. The room held its breath. The truth was about to come out. The room was completely silent. All eyes were on the stage. Melissa stood frozen, her face pale. Her confident smile was gone. The microphone trembled in her hand before she dropped it. This is impossible, she said, her voice shaking. You don't have the authority. Evan stood calmly under the lights. Security waited nearby, ready but respectful. The CEO stepped forward, anger and confusion on his face. What is this? He demanded. Who approved this? Evan turned toward him. The board, he said simply. The CEO laughed once sharply. The board wouldn't dare. Evan nodded toward the screen. The names were clear. The signatures were real. The CEO's expression changed. Whispers spread fast. Phones came out. Important guests watched closely. Melissa tried to regain control. This is harassment, she shouted. I'll sue everyone here. The legal advisor stood up from the front row. You're welcome to try, she said calmly. Melissa turned shocked. The CEO whispered urgently to Evan. We can discuss this privately. Evan shook his head. This is the correct place, he said. He raised his voice slightly so everyone could hear. This club has rules, Evan said. Mrs. Grant violated them many times. Staff were threatened. Property was damaged. Guests were disturbed. Melissa screamed. They deserved it. They're nobodies. The crowd gasped. That single sentence destroyed her. Several guests stood up in anger. That's unacceptable, one said. My wife works here, another added. Melissa realized too late what she had said. Security stepped closer. Mrs. Grant, one guard said. Please come with us. She backed away. You can't touch me. The CEO tried to stop them, but the damage was done. Evan spoke again. Effective immediately, he said. Mrs. Grant is no longer welcome on these premises. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. You'll regret this, she cried. Evan looked at her calmly. No, he said. You will learn from it. The CEO turned to Evan furious. You think you've won? You're nothing. Evan took a slow breath. He turned back to the audience. There is one more thing, he said. He removed his jacket. Underneath he wore a simple suit. I am not staff, Evan continued. I never was. The room erupted in shock. He pointed to the screen. My name is Evan Cole, he said. Founder. Majority owner. The CEO stumbled back. Melissa stared at Evan, her mouth open. I stayed quiet to protect this place, Evan said. Not to protect egos. The board representative stood and nodded in support. Guests began to clap. Slowly at first. Then louder. Melissa was escorted out, crying and screaming. The CEO followed, silent and defeated. The gala continued after a pause, But the story spread faster than any speech. That night, Evan stood alone in the hall. The club felt peaceful again. The fall was complete. But one chapter remained. The next morning the club felt different. Not quieter. Not louder. Lighter. Staff members walked with relaxed faces. They smiled at each other. For the first time in a long while, no one felt afraid of being watched or judged. Evan arrived early again, but this time he did not wear the black uniform. He wore a simple suit. People noticed. Whispers followed him through the halls, but not out of fear. Out of respect. The staff gathered quietly near the desk. Some looked nervous. Others looked curious. Evan stopped and faced them. "I want to say something," he said. Everyone listened. "I should have stepped forward sooner," Evan continued. "I stayed silent to protect this place. But silence can also protect the wrong behavior." The staff nodded. "You matter," he said. "Every role here matters." A few eyes filled with tears. That afternoon, the board held an official meeting. The rules were reviewed. New protections for staff were approved. Clear limits were placed on all members, no matter how powerful. The club returned to what it was meant to be. Meanwhile, Melissa's world collapsed quickly. Her friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. Social media turned silent. The story spread through business circles, but not as gossip. As a warning, the CEO tried to contact Evan. Once. Twice. Evan agreed to one meeting. They sat across from each other in a quiet office. "You embarrass my family," the CEO said bitterly. Evan looked at him calmly. "No," he replied. "Your wife embarrassed herself. I only stopped it." The CEO looked down. "I built companies from nothing," he said quietly. "I thought power meant control." Evan nodded. "It doesn't," he said. "It means responsibility." The meeting ended without anger. The CEO left knowing some doors would never open again. Weeks passed. The club flourished. Members felt safer. Staff worked proudly. The atmosphere changed completely. One evening, a young staff member approached Evan. "I almost quit," she said, "because of how people treated us." Evan smiled gently. "I'm glad you stayed." She smiled back. Evan walked through the club that night, looking at the walls, the lights, the people. The same place he once stood in front of as a dream. Revenge was never his goal. Respect was. Power did not come from shouting. It came from fairness. And the strongest people never needed to prove who they were until it mattered. The end. Crown Fire.